That was one of the thousands of protests in the United States and across the world right now, hands-off protests against the Trump regime. That was in Concord, New Hampshire. Now we're seeing millions of people in the aggregate in the United States and across the world protesting the Trump regime. That is what Trump is waking up to today as he is once again golfing in Florida. As Americans are out there on the streets protesting, Donald Trump, bunker boy, is golfing away. This was the front page of the Wall Street Journal this morning. Market carnage worsens. You see a straight line basically down. That's the markets crashing right there. And then this photo on the Wall Street Journal, owned by Rupert Murdoch, is a photo of Donald Trump golfing or heading to golf. Trump heads to golf amid tariff turmoil. That is what Murdoch even thinks about Trump right now as well. Let me just take you here to Boston, where there's over 100,000 protesters in the hands-off protest there, courtesy of Rob Way. Here's about 100,000 protesters in Boston. Let's take a look at what's going down there. Let's play the clip. Now, let me give a shout out to a bunch of the other protests taking place, like the protest in Fort Lauderdale. Let's talk about the protests taking place in Germany. Let's talk about the protests in London. We could talk about the protests in Portland, Maine, the protest in Cincinnati, in Buffalo, in Winchester, Virginia, in Columbus, Ohio, in Asheville, North Carolina, in Duluth, Minnesota, in Pennsylvania, in Brussels, Belgium. I could go. There are protests. Obviously, I'm going to be missing cities and countries and locations and towns, but I want to highlight all the people who have been tagging me on those, and we'll be doing more coverage, of course, in the morning on these protests. But shout out to everyone everywhere protesting the Trump regime. So what's Donald Trump posting while he's golfing right now? The following. Big business is not worried about tariffs because they know they are here to stay, but they are focused on the big, beautiful deal, which will supercharge our economy. Very important going on right now. Then Donald Trump posted this morning. China has been hit much harder than the USA, not even close. They and many other nations have treated us unsustainably badly. We have been the dumb and helpless whipping post, but not any longer. We are bringing back jobs and businesses like never before. Already more than $5 trillion of investment and rising fast. This is an economic revolution and we will win. Hang tough. It won't be easy, but the end result will be historic. We will, and he puts this all in caps, make America great again, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Literally a demented individual, right? Demented Donald there golfing, saying it ain't going to be easy. Hang tough, everybody, while I inflict and me and Elon Musk inflict pain and suffering. But business is going to love this, by the way, as the MAGA Republicans in the Senate were working overtime to bring $5 trillion in tax cuts to billionaires as Donald Trump is tanking our markets. Hey, Donald, you promised that on day one, you were going to bring prices down. There are going to be so many jobs, you're not going to know what to do with them. You also promised that there would be peace in Ukraine in 24 hours, that housing would be affordable right away. Also, no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. You promised all of those things right away, and all you're doing is crashing the economy and making the world far less stable and destroying America's alliances abroad. By the way, Donald Trump sent the following email to his supporters. I subscribe to this email list so you don't have to. Do you want a Doge check? Tell me here. Would you take a check, Ben? I'll even sign it. I'm proposing something completely unprecedented. 5,000 Doge dividend checks. Tell me you want one. It's your money anyway. I'm just giving it back to you. It's why I call this presidency the rug pull or Ponzi scheme presidency. Just pull the rug over you. And like a Ponzi scheme, they just do it again and again and again. Now that they know that they're tanking people's pensions, life savings, and 401ks, I'm going to give you a $5,000 check. You want me to give you some money? Will you beg for it, Ben? Please beg for it. And maybe I'll give you a $5,000 Doge check that I'm never going to give you. And then I'm going to come up with my next Ponzi scheme as I pick pocket you and give the money to the billionaires. Yeah, we know what you're doing. That's why there are millions of people protesting in the United States of America and throughout the world. By the way, why? Now that the MeidasTouch network is the biggest and has the most views of any news network in the world, that's why we're covering these protests as well, live all day here on the MeidasTouch network, exactly as the people wanted, even though corporate news is not covering it the way they should. Okay, let's take a look at this. Also, this article from the Wall Street Journal today. Americans were souring on Trump's economic plans even before Trump's tariff bloodbath. A majority of voters opposed Trump's levies on important goods and disapproved of how he is handling inflation and prices. The polls suggest that the president, who promised that tariffs are about making America rich again, is facing unease. That's an understatement right there. What are the Trump influencers like Benny Johnson saying? Well, they're saying this: losing money means nothing. Digital ones and zeros. In the end, you won't miss any of it. Seriously, that's the message from the Trump influencers. Digital ones and zeros, as Tom Nichols says, spoken like someone with money who won't retire for another 40 years anyway. No one hates the working class now like the MAGA world's Carl Quintanilla post. The coming weeks are going to be a big rolling crash of platitudes, or we can say Trump propaganda and lies versus reality. We're seeing multiple companies that were preparing IPOs now no longer preparing IPOs. We're seeing companies pausing their exports into the United States. We're seeing factories shut down, as Carl Quintanilla reports as well via Apollo's slide deck this AM. It's not just about the tariffs. The risks that we're seeing, the harm to the economy, also includes consumer confidence, the lowest ever. Corporate confidence, almost the lowest ever. Negative impact of tariffs, earnings on our GDP as well. Negative impact of retaliation, including less tourism into the United States. For example, the Canada boycott of all U.S. tourism is now 75 to 85%. Canadians are not coming to the U.S. By the way, in addition to Donald Trump threatening to annex and invade it, also if you show up at the United States, you might end up in an ICE detention center or a concentration camp in El Salvador. And then once you're sent there, the Trump regime will tell federal courts in the United States, like they did last week with Abrego Garcia, oopsies, nothing we can do. Go tell Nayib Bukele. Maybe he can help out. That's literally what the Trump regime's response is. After writing oopsies, we sent wrong people to concentration camps in El Salvador. Elbows up, Canada. Elbows up, world. Hands off, Donald, of our country. Also, don't forget the Doge layoffs of federal workers, how that's going to cause significant harm and make us less safe here and abroad. Negative impact of a $6 trillion decline in the S&P. Let me bring you to the protest in Washington, D.C., that we're covering here on the MeidasTouch network. Over 100,000 people protesting in D.C. Democratic Congress member Jamie Raskin speaking at the protest. Let's take a look.
He gave us the right to speak freely, to publish freely, to worship freely, to assemble freely, and to petition government for a redress of grievances. As Dr. King said, we've got the right to protest for what is right without being arrested, deported, or fired. We got the right to read the books we want, including 1984 and The Handmaid's Tale, even if they now belong in the nonfiction section. We've even got the right to call the president deranged for crashing our economy, destroying $6 trillion of wealth and turning my 401k into a 201k.
By the way, remember when we flagged for everybody as well 2 months ago the following: hedge funds are betting big that the stock market is going to suffer a devastating crash due to Donald Trump. Data from Goldman Sachs is sending shockwaves through financial circles, revealing a dramatic surge in short positions against the U.S. stock market. First reported in Daily Mail, we flagged that for everybody, saying, look at what they're saying. Also, remember during the election, we flagged what Donald Trump and Elon Musk were saying privately. We were doing exposés on it while corporate media was saying everyone's going to get so rich under Donald Trump. Remember, we said privately in Mar-a-Lago, we hear they're saying that they want to inflict economic hardship. Remember? And they were also saying it publicly too on some clips. Yeah, hardship is necessary. Hardship is needed. But look, This was from The Economist before the handover of former President Biden to Donald Trump. We were the envy of the world. America's economy, the envy of the world at that time. But, who would have ever thought that someone like Donald Trump, who's bankrupted literally everything, not literally, most things in his entire life, casino stakes, whatever, university, someone who's been found civilly liable for fraud and making up financial valuations, someone who's a convicted felon for business records fraud, someone who is a sexual predator found liable for sexual assault. I don't know, someone who led an insurrection against the country. Who could have expected that someone like this hates our country and would try to inflict this pain on our country? But hey, Donald, while you're golfing, we the people are rising up. The place to watch it is here on the MeidasTouch Network, the network for the resistance and opposition to your authoritarian regime. And until you take this very microphone from my hand, we will be making sure we do everything to oppose, resist, and stop what your authoritarian regime is doing. The people are rising up, Donald. Enjoy your golf game.
Can't get enough Meidas? Check out the Meidas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.